They've been a lot worse, yeah. Downstate, they have a lot more ice and.
What is John before you leave? Wednesday. Wednesday?
Yeah, that's what he's calling.
Yeah.
So you're not enough entertainment for them, you have to leave them somewhere else.
Okay, let's have a call to order. Roll call, please.
Richard Cochran,
Here.
John Somavilla,
Here.
Robert Fudge,
Here.
Heather Harris Brady. Here. Brad Jewett.
Here.
Jamie Kramer.
Here.
Joe Underwood.
Here.
We didn't have the pledge.
Yeah.
Pledge in there. So,
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
thank you. We have first public comment. Usually we have a thing. So any interested party or person may address the board on any matter of data concern during public comment. Comments will be limited to 5 minutes and 1 minute warning to be given. When any public comment that becomes disruptive or really repetitive, and impedes the orderly progress of the meeting, may be terminated by the deciding officer. This is your public comment. Any clarifying questions? Needed will be assigned a member of data staff, follow up directly on any open concerns.
Hi, I'm Mitchell Treadwell. I'm the city commissioner for the city of Traverse City, and I also serve on BATA's local advisory committee. I'm just here to see what happens and to introduce myself as another member of the municipal community. Looking forward to all the great things that BATA does as somebody that rides BATA regularly, and glad to see them still working in the city. I checked them this morning.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Rob Henschel. I'm the chairman of the Grand Traverse County Board of Commissioners. I'd like to thank you all for your service to BATA and to our community. Concerned about an item on your agenda, which is why I'm here today. The item is where your board is proposing to edit your own articles of incorporation. So I'm not your lawyer, but just a guy that runs a hardware store, and I'm really interested in local government and really involved. But the Public Transportation Authority Act of 196, governing Michigan, says regarding the formation of an authority, political subdivisions which have created an entities described in this subsection which form a public authority shall be members of the public authority. Political subdivisions being Grand Traverse County, which I chair, and Leelanau County. Grand Traverse appoints 4 of your board members. Leelanau appoints 3. We are the members of this organization that create the articles of incorporation. So the way I read this is you cannot change your own bylaws. That would go to the respective county commissions to update the interlocal agreement that formed BATA. And I could be completely wrong, not a lawyer. But here's the thing, you're proposing to appoint your own members. That to me is a break of the public trust because there is no link Those people representing tax dollars being spent are not linked to elected people. The voters have zero say if those three people. Outside of the county commissioners who are elected, we appoint 4 of the board members here. And then those people are one step further from the voter. That's one step further from accountability. So I take issue with the notion of an authority appointing its own members. It's taking away that layer of accountability that the voters bring. If I don't produce good work, if I produce something that seems fishy or shady in the work that I do for the government, I get voted out. Every 2 years, I've got to re-ask the voters if they still want me to keep going. So far, they keep putting me back in there. But if we have unaccountable government, I don't expect to be voted in again. So I would encourage the board members to rethink that. If you really want to go to a 9-member board, that's fine. But let's figure out how to have it appointed by the respective counties who are the proper members of the organization for editing. Now, the board itself has bylaws, and that is how you're going to run your board meetings and how you're going to run your executive, bylaws. That's totally within your purview. Articles of incorporation are one step above that. And they would trump any rules that you create. So if you guys can create your own articles of incorporation, then your articles of incorporation no longer are above your bylaws because you can change any of them. So I would just encourage you to consider being accountable to the voters. And if you want 9 members, have them all appointed by the subsidiary government officials who are elected to do so. Thank you.
Any other?
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
I'm not the public. Last meeting, I felt that my integrity was questioned as far as per diem. So I'm going to return your swag even. And I'm publicly going to say that I'm taking no per diem for any of this. This is a freebie because I will not have my integrity questioned by either the chairman or the director, which they did in the
I
last
have
meeting.
not questioned.
When you ask about my loyalty to whatever, and
I didn't.
I will not have that happen. So there's your swag, and I will take no, I will take no per diem.
I never questioned that.
Thank you. Let's move on.
Well, so are you a appointed liaison from the road commission?
I have created a liaison position with the road commission. That does not interfere with my job here.
Well, the problem is you're not appointed to the board by.
Just because the liaison commission has somebody here, just because the road commission has somebody here, does not mean that they're loyal to that. I was appointed here by the Grand Traverse County Board, and I am responsible to the Grand Traverse County Board.
You've been appointed.
But I have created an official liaison. At this time, I have not filled it with anybody else because I sit on this board.
So when it was, you appointed yourself to it at the road commission meeting, does that mean?
That doesn't mean anything. That's like telling this man right here that he has a conflict of interest because he's on the county board commission.
We're not insinuating you have a conflict of interest. It's
And the
just
loyalty
about
lies to the
clarity of whether or
taxpayers
not-
of this county and of Leelanau County, but specifically this county. My loyalty lies to the taxpayers of this county because I was appointed by the county board to oversee
Right.
their interest in this public entity.
So will you be
All of
getting
us
paid by
are.
the road commission?
Nope, not to be here,
Every one of us. That's what we do.
but you questioned mine specifically, and I'm pretty sure it's because you didn't get who you wanted on this board. Well, because you brought it to mind in a public meeting, so I'm bringing it back. There's your swag. I am not taking any funds to sit on this board. Thank you.
And I could.
But you could, but I will not, and I won't. That's a whole nother issue that we'll get into later about the per diem here. When it's suggested that the reason it's set at, so that we don't have to do 1099 for the board members, that was a comment made here by one of the officials here. And if you're willing to skirt tax law, that leads me to believe there's other things happening within this organization.
Oh, my God.
That's completely off base. I'm so sorry to say that.
So you can say what
With all
it
due
is.
respect, that is for the board member to choose whether or not they want.
That's
to
for the board
do
member,
taxes.
but it was indicated
It was
that was
not-
set the way
that
it
is
was
not
set,
the case.
so that a 1099 did not have to be.
It is
issued.
no skin off this organization's back to issue a 1099.
It wouldn't happen to begin with, if you attended all the meetings, because we only have 10 or 11 meetings a year, so you'd be under the 600,000. So, I mean, by default, you're not gonna hit the 600,000. So. Okay, do we have approval, or do I have a motion to approve the, February regular meeting agenda as?
We do need to add the oath of office for Jamie.
Oh,
And we'll just have to do that after the approval of the agenda.
Okay,
So, agenda approval with that.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the February 23rd agenda as presented.
do I have a second?
Support.
I have support. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Oath of office for Jamie. There you are. There you go, there you are.
And for those that didn't get a chance to meet Jamie, I don't know if everybody's had a chance, but Jamie Kramer is our new Leelanau County Commissioner, appointed to the BATA Board of Directors. So welcome, Jamie, and we will make you official when you read that.
Okay, so I have to say it out loud.
Yeah.
We have to hold up a hand.
Two of them.
Never hurts. Never
Okay, I do understand.
You don't-
Okay. I'll be,
I'm,
I'm like really official with this stuff. I, Jamie Kramer, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully, truly, impartially, and honestly, to the best of my judgment, skill, and ability, execute and perform the duties required of me as a member of the Bay Area Transportation Authority Board of Directors. Is that good?
Thank you.
Welcome.
Good to be here.
And welcome. Consent calendar. Purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items, whether to be dealt with in one board motion without discussion. Any member of the board, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. An item is not removed from the consent calendar. The action noted in parentheses on the agenda is approved by a single board action adopting the consent calendar. Consideration of approving the following minutes: the organizational minutes, meeting minutes from January 26, 23, the regular board meeting minutes from January 26, 23. Consideration of accepting the following reports: the monthly income statement, fiscal year 23 Q1 ridership report, fiscal year 23 Q1 turnover report, governance committee minutes of the February 13th, 23, the financial routine notes of February 13th, 23, board track request tracker, there's a new item, correspondence. We have any items that anybody wants to remove?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the consent calendar as presented.
Do I have support?
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we are to Kelly. Oh, that was fast. You have to be quick.
I know. And I don't know, I don't see Jerry over there. Can't
No, I don't
see
either.
everybody, but, in the interest of a hefty agenda, I'm not gonna belabor my written report that's in the packet. Just a couple of points I wanted to add, and reiterate, thank you to the board members that took the time to, meet with TransPro and share your insights. And, they shared with me that they felt that they got really good input, and, they're looking forward to the retreat on March 16th. The procurement manager, we've been recruiting for, a new position to BATA that coincides with our transition to small urban status. We are excited to announce that we have filled that position. We've got someone that will be starting on April 3rd. He comes with a supply chain management degree from Michigan State. And about 7 to 8 years working for Ford Motor Company, in purchasing. So, really great skill set. I think it's gonna be good for the role. So we're excited to have that going. And then I'll just give the quick update on where we're at on the facility project. There was one difference in the subcontractor awards from what the list that we shared at the last meeting. And that was on the asphalt. I think that list had said it was gonna be going to Molon. It was actually awarded to Elmer's, and that was, at first blush, it looked like Molon had low bid, but when you looked at the Elmer's bid, there were several deducts for carrying both categories. And so when you looked at that in total, then it was within $59 of low bid. So, I mean, it just is better for the project to use one contractor on both the site prop and the asphalt end of that. So they awarded that to Elmer's in its entirety. So just wanted to make sure that was mentioned to all of you. And then we're just working on permitting, going through all of the county and township approval processes, permit processes, soil erosion control, that kind of thing. So that's the facility update. And then Eric is gonna give us a technology plan update. We just felt like with new board members and some of well, first of all, the 5-year duration of this, it's hard to remember what all is going on with technology improvements. And also as we get ourselves ready for that March 16th retreat, just to have this information top of mind. Eric's gonna take us through what all is happening in the world of technology improvements for BATA.
So just to recap, and Kelly kind of teed it up, why have a technology plan in place? So a couple different things. One, it's we've had it from our taxpayers, from our community, asking for more technology to help streamline transit, to make it easier to use public transit, and to kind of meet the needs of the community. The other thing that we identified was that a lot of BATA's technology was starting to age. Even though we have a lot of technology on our vehicles and we're kind of ahead of the game when it comes to other transits in the state of Michigan, some of that stuff is starting to kind of reach the end of its life. So getting a plan in place to stay at the forefront and keep that technology kind of moving through. And then of course, with any project, adding technology, it can take a lot of time, so it's good to have a plan to identify the cadence, to get funding lined up, and to kind of play out what technologies need to happen when, and put that together. And if you guys remember, for any of you guys that have been on the board for a while, we put together this technology roadmap. The BATA board approved this approach in February of 21, and it's come to fruition, and we're already rolling forward on some of those initiatives. So what were the things that were outlined in that technology plan? The first project was a replacement of what's called our CAD AVL, computer-aided dispatch and automated vehicle location systems on the buses. These are for both of our fixed route buses and for our on-demand service. That project is already underway. We've got the vendors lined up, and we'll kind of talk about the timeline, but it looks like we're gonna go live May, June timeframe, if everything kind of goes according to plan. The next project that's on the radar, and it kind of dovetails right into the new facility that we've got coming up right around the corner, is I've kind of bucketed it all together as a facility, fleet, and yard asset management system. So this is kind of everything to manage the maintenance, and then the fleet itself with the vehicles. And then of course, we're gonna have the opportunity to park all of our vehicles under one roof. And the cadence of having all of those vehicles lining up and which one comes out when and how they get parked and everything like that can be done manually with time, but there are solutions out there that can help us streamline it and be more efficient from that perspective. The next project that's on the radar is automatic passenger counters. So right now, the drivers manually track when riders board. With our new upgrades of the CAT AVL system, we'll have the ability to have sensors that automatically track when passengers board. Then there's an automated scheduling and planning software that's on deck, which is basically optimizing driver shifts for integration into our system. So it looks at how many routes are out there, what drivers we need, how it fills into those shifts. And then, of course, the big looming one that's out here a couple years down the road is a fare system overhaul. And so all of these projects that are kind of outlined, we're getting estimates on the fleet and facility one. The other ones are kind of placeholder estimates that we've got from our projects consultant that we did when we looked at putting this roadmap together. Projects A and B are already in the process. They're fully grant funded. We also have over $600,000 of grant funds secured right now for additional technologies down the road. And so we'll kind of feed into that as we move forward, and of course, look for additional grants that are out there as needed.
How long are the grants good for, the 600,000?
So some of them are already spec'd out to 2025. So they've got, usually they have about 3-year timelines that you can spend those funds in. Yep.
And then you can have a longer extension if you need to.
Yep.
With other ones, so same as.
Were those state or federal grants?
That's RTF funds.
A lot of them are the World Task Force or small urban funding. So learning what we learned this morning may be a new approach with that down the road, but we'll get to that later. So just to give you a quick highlight on the projects and what is on deck. So we've got our fixed route CAT AVL. The main piece that's coming out of this is we've never had a fixed route solution on the bus before. So this is going to be able to map out the routes, give real-time tracking for riders so they can know when a bus is arriving in the ETA. They can see the buses driving down the road on their phone or online. It's got tracking on it so the driver knows if they're running hot or cold based on the mapping and the timing of the route. It's going to have a level of reporting that we need to require as we become a small urban system. It's called NTD reporting. So this has all the reporting functionality that we're going to need in it. It's going to take antiquated Windows 7 computers that we have on all of our buses right now and replace them with Android tablets to bring everything up to speed. And this also has automated vehicle announcements built into it as well, so that when you're riding the bus, you'll be able to hear the next stop that's coming up and all of that. The other piece of the puzzle that is the on-demand microtransit side. The vendor that we're going with is called VIA. It's very similar to the Transloc system that we have right now for on-demand, but it just takes it to a whole other level. The algorithm is more intuitive. It's got more reporting. It has more management and functionality in it than what our current off-the-shelf system has. It will really allow us to upgrade our microtransit pilot or system that we've got running in and around Traverse City right now. The other thing that this technology does is it gives us the ability, if we decide to do so, to have on-demand in our entire service area. So it can be all of Grand Traverse and Leelanau County and have the ability to request a bus in real time. So it really sets us up for expansion and efficiency from that perspective. And like I said, then there's the fleet management system that's on the horizon. I kind of talked about that real quickly. Automated passenger counters, automated system plannings, which is that run cutting software to add into our scheduling for our drivers. And then of course the fare replacement, which is a hefty one that we'll be looking at. Our current fare boxes are kind of reaching end of life at the end of this year. They'll still be functional, but the vendor GenFare is no longer going to sell that particular model that we have currently on our buses. So it'll be good to explore what new functionality looks like. And from the back end, Phil has learned quickly that it's a beast to navigate. Its reporting is not user-friendly or intuitive as some of our other systems. So that'll be a good one to tackle in a couple of years. So the only other things that are kind of on the technology horizon besides those projects that we identified are, we also have a workforce and payroll software replacement coming up. Our current payroll and software system was purchased by or acquired by another company, and they just decided they're not going to support that product anymore, unfortunately. So we are looking at an alternative kind of in the same family called UKG, and this will be a new product that will, I think, leaps and bounds take us above and beyond what our current Ascentus system is like. So that's on the horizon. We'll have a new financial software kind of on the horizon too. Currently we utilize QuickBooks, but QuickBooks has limitations on the level of reporting and the detail that we can get into. And Phil's working his magic, of course, utilizing that program right now, but we'll look at the future to kind of add a new financial software. And then as we move into the new facility, we're also looking at potentially a new phone system too, something that'll be a little bit more intuitive, something that will match our flow a little bit better and have some easier customization. Right now, our current phone system is a ShoreTel system. It's very beastly to kind of update and upgrade, and it takes time. And we'd like something that's a little bit more user-friendly and customizable and that we can manage better than having to pull a vendor in every time to do that. So I know I just went through a lot of things real quickly. Any questions on any of those? Yeah, John.
Just a couple things. One, to implement these systems, are you gonna need or require some project management talent to facilitate that? Is that down the board in the plan? Or who's gonna manage all this?
This is a great question. So in most cases, we're managing them all internally. We've been able to plus up our IT staff to help support that internally, but we may need to pull in some of our outside vendors to help with that, depending on the scope. The vendors that we've selected for like our current project, they are bringing in their own people to help with the installation and the project manager of that. It's part of the agreement that we've got with them. But
The other one was certainly in the scope of projects like these, there's a return. Sometimes there's a return on investment, sometimes there isn't, right? Have you done any calculations, financial modeling as far as these projects and what they're going to do to impact positively cash or revenue?
So we haven't done any of those calculations yet, but we could do a summary like that and bring it back to the board if what we see the impacts are going to be.
Well, I don't want to create a lot of work. Well, generally, when you look at a project like that, the board will generally ask you, what's the return on this investment? It's several $1 million there, so are we going to get anything back? Or there's a lot of nice to haves, and I'm sure every one of those projects are necessary. But understanding the financial implications of that would be, I think it would be good to support it, especially for future projects.
Definitely.
If we don't do these, at least going forward, let's look at that type of model. Okay.
I would say there's two kind of themes associated with these technology improvements that are driving the need. One is to have access to accurate data so that we can make data-driven decisions, right? And be able to extract the data that lives in the software, which is what we get really bogged down and challenged by with some of our existing software right now. That, and then also being driven by the growth of our organization, going from a rural transit system to a small urban transit system. There will be much more reporting required of us. And so we'll need to have these systems in place in order to accommodate that.
Yeah.
Do we have any updates on the buses that are on back order and how they might be integrated into the new technology?
So I can tell you, as far as the new technology, we planned, knowing that we were having new fleet coming in, we planned enough to accommodate the new fleet. So we'll have the technology ready to go if and when those vehicles become available. As far as fleet timeline, I don't have an
I
update
don't
on
have
that.
an update today. either.
Yeah, but we are prepped for when new vehicles do come, that we've got enough technologies to accommodate those. Yep.
Okay, any other questions for Eric?
I have nothing to really report. The committee reports, finance oversight committee. We just kind of reviewed the minutes, we're still kind of going over the driver compensation. We said we were gonna keep that in effect until the end of June right now. Since we haven't reached our FTE goal, we're going to continue with that. And changes we weren't aware of, it's a $10,000 bonus, but it's paid over a 3-year period, and 5,000 being guaranteed. So, and we also, I think Eric mentioned it in his technology, but we do need to update our payroll and HR software. And it's but we also discussed the disposal of taxable property. We have to somehow select a review current.
Yeah, I did reach out to Aspire on, I think it's what they're called now, the Traverse Area Association of Realtors. Thought that might be a good place to try to go through a clearinghouse to get to the commercial realtors in the area, and they said, yeah, they'd be happy to send, I just need to spec out what we would like to see in our proposal from a listing agent, and they will send that out to all agents in their database, and obviously within that, I'll make it clear that we're only interested in hearing from certified commercial agents. And then we'll collect those responses and we'll review them and make recommendations for listing agent.
And we also discussed the Michigan class investment, which we actually kind of covered that a little bit in the last board meeting. That's just an investment vehicle for our excess funds. And included in the package was the whole Michigan class. All of it.
Information package.
Information package, but and there are other units, governmental units within the county that are already utilizing this Michigan class investment. So, and we are recommending that that's what we consider using going forward, or at least putting some funds, investing some funds. So. Finance oversight team.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, since you brought up in your report there, the FTEs, I don't see anywhere here in this discussion last month. I don't see anything that's packet about getting an update on where we stand with employee count and what's going on there, so.
Chris, can you give us that
Yep,
report?
I'm prepared to give you an update, yep. So we are making progress and I'm excited to say our current FTE shortage is only 5.7. And from there, we actually have 4 new hires that just started this month, so they're not ready to drive yet. And we have 6 new employees starting in March. So we have seen since our inception, May 1st, of our retention and recruiting incentive, our retention rate has continued to go up, our turnover rate down, and our new hires average per month has gone up. So we're working, we still, it's good to report it every month because we have employees who are seasonal with us. So some might leave in February. So it didn't go up quite as high because we have a couple that leave for the month of February or the month of March. But overall, we are finding we are retaining them. Of the 10 new employees who started, who will start between February in March hires, 3 of them are fully licensed. So that also allows us to go a little faster on their hiring. They don't need to go through the CDL. They already possess a CDL with air brake endorsement on it. And
Do they have passenger endorsements already then?
yes,
Okay.
yeah. All 3 of the 10 do, yeah. And we also are seeing, just kind of reporting on the application side of it, significant increase in the applications since then compared to 1 year ago. We received a total applications of 866. Of those, 346 were drivers. That compares to 181, just to give you an idea from the previous year. So we are getting a good application amount and increase in interviews. We don't interview all of them when, you know, there's different factors that will, but we still interviewed 171 drivers in 22, and that's compared to 142 the previous year. So we're seeing them come in the door, and we're able to interview more and hire more, and so far retaining more. We still have work to do, and, you know, it's just like any of your industries, you know, of the few that we did lose, one is diagnosed with cancer after coming to us. One ended up getting a criminal history immediately after that we did not have in our records at the time. Some housing issues, family issues, but we're still, and the thing is, if they do, the majority of the ones that we hired but then left, the majority of them all left within a pretty short period of time. So we did not pay out the incentive to those that didn't stay with us. So we are paying the incentive out after 90 days. We pay 500, after 180 days, 500, after the first year, 2,000, second year, 2,000, and so in the third year, 5,000. So we really don't expend money on those who leave us. And sometimes they just get into the training class and they realize this is not for me, but I can definitely feel that or see the data to show that we are increasing the hires. To give you a date that I think will be fully staffed, I'm not really prepared to do that, but we are currently analyzing, so we kind of know when our employees are going to leave for, say, the month of June or this or that. So we kind of have it through February, March, and April right now, and it continues to improve. Our next step next week will be to trying to predict and forecast for May, June, and July, you know, just to give more of a long-term prediction on them. So I would say to you, the quality that we're receiving that we're retaining is much better. We hired 3 in January. I might not mention that. They are still with us. And the 4 that started earlier this month are with us, and good quality. Kelly mentioned the procurement person, another nice quality. We're fully staffed at the operations level now with our 3 supervisors, and I'm very pleased with the benchmark that is set there. We waited a little bit to get the right people for it, but I think we're all glad that we did.
Any
So
retirements in the near future?
just 1 right now, and that's in dispatch, and that will be at the end of March. So far, none in drivers, and so we're you know, pretty in close contact with our drivers to know. And I think some have postponed them that may have been thinking about it this year and have moving it out, and partly because of the incentive. And plus, I would say to you, the morale, according to our employee engagement surveys, is much stronger than it was 2 years ago. And so they're staying with us. And but yeah, and that's why we're trying to forecast now out in through the summer so that we're ready for Cherry Festival, if there is a film festival, and then also to predict, you know, who our retirees might be.
Okay.
Yeah.
We met last week on Monday. On the topics other than one that we'll be covering today, the final draft on the board compensation policy, recognition policy, and then here's a lesson discussion on board compensation. We did talk briefly regarding the location, and we tabled it for later in the week. So that's it.
Plans?
No.
That's what I thought. Old business, none. New business, we have a,
We have our friends from Networks Northwest here.
Yeah.
Yeah, yep. Hannah, Eric, and Rob in person.
There's gonna be a PowerPoint that Eric's gonna bring up.
Right now.
I know several folks here, we had a presentation by MDOT this morning. I'm gonna try and keep this presentation a little bit more high level, but MDOT's presentation we did record and we do plan on posting that on our website, so there'll be a lot more details in it. With this presentation, I will touch on, again, it's been brought up several times about the change that BATA will see due to the population increase in the urbanized area here. So I'm gonna try and focus more on that for this presentation. But as a whole, I am gonna talk about the metropolitan planning organization that is built, there we go. That'll be taking place for Traverse City. So I'm Hannah Yerk, I am a community planner at Networks Northwest, and this is Rob Carson, our regional director of community development. And so we'll both be able to answer some questions at the end as well, but I'm just gonna run through this, so you can go to the next slide. Really brief history, this kind of anticipation for this urbanized area has been in the works for the last 20 years for Traverse City. So we've actually there's some sort of task force that has been set in place since 1988 to really focus on the transportation needs for this area. And one of those main ones has been a bypass around the Traverse City area. And as we all know, has continued to be a discussion item. MDOT has proposed the last several years that we would be getting close to the 50,000 urbanized area population threshold. So this task force has sort of transformed to the Traverse Transportation Coordination Initiative. And it has been running very similar to what a metropolitan planning organization runs, which I'll discuss a little bit more further. With that said though, we just received news at the end of December that the population is about 56,890 for this urbanized area, and there is also a map that I will show. And that was just announced. So now we are in the process of starting to present to the TTCI board members. And just to give you a little bit more information on what this really will mean for the urbanized area. Next slide, please. So what is an MPO, Metropolitan Planning Organization? I will refer to it as an MPO quite a bit. This is actually federally required when an urbanized area reaches the 50,000 population threshold. So this is basically a cooperative transportation decision-making for the metropolitan planning area. And this will, like I said, TTCI has been running very similar to this. So it is made up of representatives at the local government level, state, and transportation areas within the metropolitan area. It involves key stakeholders and the public, and it also follows this comprehensive, cooperative, and continued process that is a requirement for us to follow for the federal spending. Next slide. And this is just an overview of what the population was in 2010, 2020, the urban area population, and then the actual size of the urban area. Next slide. So this is what I'm referring to. This is coming from the Census Bureau, and they provide this information of the actual urbanized area, which is in purple. And it is somewhat hard to see that it actually goes all the way up to Bingham Township. And then it also goes up into Peninsula Township, and it sort of has different sort of breakage to like East Bay Township, and then Long Lake Township as well, you can see. So this is where that 56,890 population is actually being referred to. And sort of the blank spots in this map is called like skips and jumps, where those blank spots are. And one of the next steps that will be required that MDOT works with us on in different jurisdictions will be the ACUB boundary, and that's the adjusted census urban boundary. And that will help actually smooth out these areas, and you'll get, you won't have those empty white spots in between some of those areas. Next slide. Once that ACUB boundary is created, there is this metropolitan planning area. And this is actually where the funding, the federal funding, and where the work actually will be taking place, within that planning area. And with this metropolitan planning area and the MPO, there has to be an agreement between the MPO and the governor, which actually will sign in that the Traverse City urbanized area, becomes an MPO. With that said as well, each of the members has to sign a interlocal government agreement as well. So that will be another process that the MPO will have to go through. Part of this metropolitan planning area is it has to at minimum include that urbanized area, but then it also has to look into that 20-year forecast, what could potentially become urban. And then Emma, I believe, next slide, please. This is just a map of, there is 13 current MPOs in the state of Michigan right now, and this is just showing the inner sides of it is the urban area, and then the sort of bigger boundaries is their actual planning area boundaries. So I just wanted to show that. So this is actually MDOT's recommended metropolitan planning area boundary. So it would include all of these townships, and this actually would encompass the entire urbanized area. But then additionally, because of Whitewater Township, there is plans thinking of 72 and the potential of growth on 72. They recommended adding Whitewater Township into it. Next slide. So this is a typical MPO structure that will be followed. The TTCI has been following something similar, and this is something similar that the MPO will be following. There is, you can do the next slide, please, actually. So there is a policy committee, and currently with the policy committee, these are local elected officials, officials of public agencies that operate major modes of transportation, and then state officials. They are the ones that determine, they'll basically be able to determine their own representation and be the decision-making, they'll be making the decision-making procedures. And additionally, there is an executive committee as well. And I did want to run through the list currently of members. We have East Bay Township, Grand Traverse County Road Commission, Leelanau County Road Commission, Garfield Township, MDOT, Acme Township, Elmwood Township, BATA, Traverse City. And because of that, depending on what is decided on that boundary, potential other members could be Leelanau County, MDOT statewide planning, FHWA, FTA, Grand Traverse Band of Ottawa and Chippewa Indians, Cherry Capital Airport, Northwestern Michigan College, and then, of course, the other townships and municipalities that were listed in that map. Next slide. So on top of that, so there is a policy committee, and there typically will be a technical committee that reports to the policy committee. And this actually is the advisory body for the MPO board. And they actually will provide the recommendations on different documents to the actual policy committee. And of course, there is additional standing committees that the policy committee could create as well. Next. So why an MPO? This, as we all know, federal funding or transportation funding is scarce. So this sort of MPO setup will help create different plans for the area to actually examine and reflect what the region's shared vision is. So there will be plans created. And there will be, basically, there is 3 required documents that have to be created, and the MPO will be able to utilize those in deciding where funding should sort of take place. And the MPO will facilitate collaboration with governments, interested parties, and residents. And these are, again, I kind of brought up those 3 documents, but the key things is they establish a setting, fair and impartial, they'll evaluate transportation alternatives, and then they have to develop, update, and approve these 3 key documents. So there is the long-range regional transportation plan, which I'll talk about these really quickly in a couple different slides. And then there's the transportation improvement program, the unified work plan, and then additionally, there is a public involvement plan as well that the MPO can create. So the long-range transportation plan, this is a long-term, a 20-year out plan that will focus on different goals, strategies, projects, for the urbanized area. And this can be updated every 5 years. And essentially, when this is created, the funding, it has to be fiscally constrained in this document. And then the next slide, if you go on, there is the short term, this is a transportation improvement program, so this is the short term plan. So this actually looks at specific projects for 4 years out. So this would lay out all the projects for the area and making sure this is fiscally constrained and following what the state implementation plan is. So just the next slide, just an example of what that typically, it's really hard to see, but just an example of what it looks like where there's projects, what the project cost would be, and then the different breakdowns of the cost. Next slide. And then there's unified work plan, unified planning work program document. This is just updated annually, but this actually is for the MPO to look at what type of activities they want to accomplish within the year. So the funding for the MPOs, there is 4 main sources of funding, FHWA planning grants, FTA, metropolitan transit planning, and then there's SBGP funding, which is the Surface Transportation Block Grant Program, and then the Congestion Mitigation Air Quality Program. So there is different sources of funding, it's all federal funding, and that would be coming to the MPO that'd be coming through the MPO. But additionally, it opens the door for other grant opportunities, local, state, federal, and private sources for the MPO. So this is, MDOT provided us this slide. So currently, Traverse City receives $385,000 for the STP Small Urban Program and $23,000 in SPR funds for the TTCI group. So those 2 funding sources will now be replaced once the MPO designation occurs. So there would be about $1 million for STP small MPO projects each year. And then there's the 228 in the consolidated planning grant funds, and additionally 120,000 for carbon reduction funds. And I know rural task force was also brought up. So depending, rural task force will actually remain the same, but that will stick to the actual rural areas, because that actually includes Benzie, Leelanau, and Grand Traverse County right now. So that will stay in place, but the MPO is actually for the urban area. So this is the MPO timeline. In the long term, it's a long process to actually get the documents completed. But the goal is, once you receive that 2020 population threshold, you have a year to actually become designated by the governor and the local units of government have to be in agreement within a year. So the goal is actually to have by September 2023 to actually have that designation in place. And once that actually occurs, then the documentations will start rolling out, which then also have to take place within 4 years of the designation. It was talked about today with MDOT a little bit about the small urban sort of transition for BATA as well. It sounds like it would be following a similar sort of timeline, but sort of the designation has to occur and then additional sort of work will take place with BATA to actually transition into that small urban designation for BATA. And here's just a checklist of work that we will be completing. So the MPO name, MPA boundaries, bylaws. There is, TTCI has bylaws currently, but probably some sort of tweaks to it just to make it more relatable for the MPO. Some organizational structure, confirmations with that, the policy board membership, because the planning boundary has increased, different board members have to be considered. Like I said, the intergovernmental agreements is a big next step for us. We are presenting to all members right now, and we will be presenting to additional stakeholders or potential members once we have completed the current members' presentations. But these intergovernmental agreements have to be in place with so BATA, City of Traverse, or City of Traverse City, Grand Traverse County. So all of those members will have to actually be in agreement to be part of the MPO. And that's presented to the governor as well once we have those to actually get the designation to become an MPO. So we have drafts of that agreement from MDOT already. But once we have that more finalized with the official list of members, that is something that will be presented to BATA again, when that time comes. And then lastly, just the location of MPO will have to be finalized. And here is just the partnerships and the different roles. So MDOT and there's basically, MDOT will be providing a lot of the guidance. That is who we report to, or who the MPO will be getting their information from. And they will essentially work with BATA, the MPO, and a lot of the transportation planning process. They are the main point of contact for TTCI and BATA. And they will actually typically participate in the technical and policy committee meetings. And currently we have an MDOT member on those boards as well. So they would probably remain on those boards. And then additionally, they will actually review and transmit all that documentation to the FHWA and FTA. Okay. So there is a website, like I said, the MDOT presentation will be posted on there as well. And this PowerPoint that was presented this morning will be on there with additional information. So I can answer any questions. I know it's a lot of information, but I wanted to just make sure I get it out there.
So the next thing this board will see from TTCI is likely the interlocal agreements.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sienna?
Rob, you gonna add anything or just sit there?
Just, it's been a long time coming. So, we've been waiting for these census numbers now for 2 years. And they kept kicking it 3 months, 6 months, 3 months, 6 months. So, now originally the time frame to really get this moving, because we thought we were gonna have census numbers over a year ago. They've condensed it down to pretty much less than a year, that we really need to get with all the stakeholders, is what we're referring to, all the partners that are TTCI members and those that still need to be brought into the fold, such as Bingham Township. You saw Green Lake Township on there, Whitewater Township. Those folks haven't been involved with TTCI or the discussions. So we'll be reaching out to them here in short order to bring them up to speed. There was a lot of information for all of you, and you've been involved with the process. So those folks are gonna kind of get blindsided, feel a little awful about that, but it's gonna really, I mean, September 30th is gonna be here before we know it. It's looking at snow, but you know, quick it passes. So yeah, so if there's any questions at all, obviously you can reach out to Kelly. She's gonna be the primary contact with BATA, but we're available. And my phone line and my email are always open, so I'm just happy to coordinate answering questions.
I would just also reiterate for this board's sake, the MPO is a big deal, yes, but more impactful for this agency is the transition from a rural public transit system to a smaller transit system. And they coincide with each other, but they're not exactly the same. So we'll be learning more about that process. I think Hannah mentioned when she was looking at the timeline that the transition to small urban will somewhat follow, but lag that process. So first is the MPO designation, then is the application to become the small urban, and then that once that is designated, then I believe will be officially impacted. And so I don't think that we'll see that in fiscal 24. I expect that to hit in fiscal 25. While there will be some reporting requirements that we'll have to comply with in fiscal year 24, I think the biggest impact to BATA is going to be seen in fiscal 25.
Well, we have, not sure who's from Raymond. Nope.
How we doing? My name is Josh Sullivan. I am an audit principal in our Traverse City office for Raymond. So thank you for having Raymond as your auditors and having me here today to present. I personally do not work on the engagement. However, the engagement principal is down out of our Grand Rapids office, and so we asked me to kind of go through and present the statements today. The team that works on the audit outside of that is right out of our office here in Traverse City. So the first document that I want to go over is the actual financial statements. You'll see in the brown box, or actually in yours, it's a blue box, they're down in the bottom right-hand corner, it says financial statements on it. We'll kind of go through those quickly, but on the third page in, or page 1, is the independent auditor's report. That's where the rubber hits the road and what this authority pays us to do. So you'll see a little bit of a change in this from what you've seen in the past. The audit standards or accounting standards move things around in the opinion. It basically says the same thing at the end of the day, but instead of having to read, 2 or 3 pages first and then get the opinion at the end, they move that opinion right up to the front. So on page 1 at the top, you'll see the opinion paragraph. What we are here to do, we audited the financial statements of BATA as of and for the years ended September 30th, 22 and 21, and the related notes to the statements as well. That second paragraph, that is the actual opinion. In our opinion, the accompanying financial statements that were referred to above present fairly and all material respects the financial position of the authority as of September 30th, 22 and 21, and the changes in financial position and cash flows thereof for those years, in conformity with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. That is a clean or unmodified opinion. So that's the highest level of assurance that we can place on a set of statements. So hats off to the team here for a good, clean opinion.
Is present fairly common language for that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, we don't audit every single transaction and go through that. You do samples, you look at certain areas that are riskier and place more time in those areas. So you can't really say, they're completely.
That's what I thought. I just wanted.
Yep. The next paragraph gets into the basis for our opinion. So we conducted our audits in accordance with auditing standards. And as well as the governmental auditing standards as a public unit. Responsibilities of management, these are management's financial statements, they're not Raymond's statements. We receive a trial balance and all the other information. We then take that, we do our testing, but these are management's financial statements. We help prep them, but the numbers and the what's in them is provided to us by management. Page 2, independent auditors responsibilities, just goes through, we've got certain tests that we have to do as part of an audit. And then also the new bullet points in the audit opinion or in the audit report. That's something that's a little bit new to bullet point. We exercise professional judgment in what we do and professional skepticism as we go through. We identify and assess risks of the material misstatement, look at those riskier areas, obtain an understanding of the internal controls. So we do walkthroughs of the key processes, cash to person, cash receipts, and those whole processes from start to finish to make sure those controls appear to be in line. And then evaluate the appropriateness of the accounting policies that are used. And then finally, something I like to point out when doing these presentations as well is that last bullet point on the bottom of page 2, conclude whether in judgment there are any conditions or events considered in the aggregate that raise substantial doubt about the authority's ability to continue as a going concern for a reasonable period of time. Anytime you used to see the words going concern in an audit report, you would pause and get nervous. Now they're putting it in here and they're saying, management and the auditors, we've evaluated it, and there is no concern you wouldn't be able to continue for another year. If there was concern, there's going to be another paragraph or 2 that goes in the report. But those words, I like to point out, going concern, you used to see them in the reports, and then that would give you pause and make you a little bit nervous. Page 3, along with the financial statements, there is also some required supplementary information. Governmental units have a management discussion and analysis that follows the report, just breaks down the financial statement into a little bit easier readable format for those individuals that don't have an accounting background. Basically summarizes the actual financial statements and footnotes. And then there's also the pension-related supplemental schedules that are required by the gas group. Middle of the page there, supplementary information. There's some other supplemental information that the authority does present as well. And then finally, the last paragraph refers to the single audit or the audit over the federal awards. And that is in a separate document as well. So any questions on the opinion? Seeing and hearing none, I'll move on. The next few pages are that management discussion and analysis. Great, if you're only looking at one thing in these statements other than the opinion, I'd focus your attention to that. I don't typically go through it as part of this. I'll hit the actual financial statements. Management writes that up. We make sure to review that, make sure it's consistent with the financial statements themselves, but the opinion doesn't really cover the management's discussion analysis. But like I said, it's just a summary information of the rest of the statements. I want to jump to page 12, the statement of net position. So looking at statement of net position, going through your assets, liabilities, your deferred outflows and inflows that are related to your pension and property tax levies, and then finally the net position. You'll see overall, and as I go through this, please stop me if there's any questions or you want me to go through something in a little more detail. I'm going to hit high level because I know you've had a chance to look at these already. But total assets overall are up approximately $3.5 million. And you're seeing that in cash and investments. I think Richard earlier in the meeting mentioned something about, having excess funds that were then taken and invested in some U.S. Treasuries, securities, try to get some better returns on some of that stuff while you have those excess funds. Deferred outflows related to pension, we'll see that in the footnotes a little bit more, what really makes those up. But essentially a lot of that is your payments, your year end is not the same as what the plan's year end is. So you see a difference, a timing difference. So any contributions that you make into the plan after their plan year end is a deferred amount. And then there's also some differences in assumptions and the actual effect of the plan assets and that affect those deferred amounts. Liabilities are actually down approximately $400,000 year over year. That was mostly the accrued payroll and benefits due to timing of when the year end fell with payrolls. And overall, your net position at the end of the day up from 18.6 million to 22.3 million. And you'll see kind of that on the next page, how the net position goes up. It's essentially the net income or the change in that position of the authority. Next page, page 13, your statement of revenues and expenses and changes in that fund net position. Overall, operating revenues were down approximately $620,000. You did see passenger fares up, and but then the intergovernmental federal and state revenues were down, more consistent with some prior years. I think with some of the extra government funding related to COVID that you had seen in 21. That's the reason why that is down. Total operating expenses down as well, 307,000. You talked at the beginning of the meeting about your labor and your FTEs, and we're seeing it in every industry right now where everybody's looking for employees. So you're seeing those labor and fringe benefits down as a result of that. Non-operating revenues up 114,000 year over year. Most of that's made up of your property tax levies. And then capital contributions from federal and state, those are up as well, approximately 156,000. Overall, at the end of the day, change in net position, very consistent with the prior year, only about a $43,000 difference, and an increase in net position of 3.6 million. Statement of cash flow broken down into the 4 different areas. You get your cash flow from operating activities, and you're seeing an actual use in cash there, approximately 850,000. Property tax collected in the next section of your financing activities, just under $5 million of tax collected. Then you've got your capital and related financing, what was used to purchase fixed assets or capital assets. You saw approximately 1.6 million in acquisition of and construction of capital assets in the current year. So you've got an overall use of cash there, just under $1 million. And then any investing activities. So I mentioned you had purchased investments this year with that excess cash. At the end of the day, a decrease in cash and cash equivalents of 5.1 million, but a lot of that is just purchasing of those investments. The bottom section of that page just breaks out the cash flow from operating in a different manner. Accounting nerds like myself, we've got our a direct method and an indirect method when it comes to looking at a cash flow statement. And then the one at the bottom is just a way to show how that operating cash or operating activities work. Questions there? All right, the footnotes, I'm gonna hit a couple of high points. I'm not gonna really go through these in great detail, except for a couple of spots that may have changed from what you've seen in the past, or things I thought to point out. But footnote 1 really just goes through, talks about what the authority is here to do, and then tells the reader how they count for different items. So, the items that are on your balance sheet and the revenue, how are those accounted for? Didn't have anything else specific. Footnote 1, footnote 2 just breaks down your deposits and investments. So that's your cash and your investments. There's nothing really new that I wanted to point out, other than having some investments now and showing that those are in those US Treasury bills. Footnote 3 on page 20, or starting on page 23, roll forward your capital assets. On page 23 for the 2022 year, so the beginning balance, all those additions, any disposals. And then on footnote 20, or page 24, you've got the prior year, the 2021 year. Page 25, couple other notes, just contingent liabilities, in any ordinary normal course of business, you could become party to various legal actions and stuff like that. Not seeing anything in here though that needs to be recorded by the accounting standards where you would have to put a liability or reflect a loss there. Nothing new with 5. Footnote 6 gets into the pensions, and there's a lot in this pension footnote. It keeps getting longer and longer, it seems like, too. I think the couple of important things to look at in the pension footnote is on page 26, showing really what has happened with those pension liability, or what has happened over the year with that pension liability or asset in your case. The total pension liability of 10.1 million. The plan's fiduciary net position, or the net assets of the plan, is 10.8 million. So you're actually in a fully funded position as of now with that plan, which is great. You look at some of the MIP plans and other pension plans out there, and where they're not fully funded, and there's huge liabilities on some organizations books with those. But at the bottom of page 29, this just shows how much, when the actuaries are making these determinations, how much the discount rate can play into that. So they used a 7.25% discount rate in their figures when they're doing their calculations. And that comes to a net pension asset of $715,000, or just under $715,000. If they were to reduce that rate by 1%, it swings at almost $1 million to actually be a liability of $560,000. And vice versa. If it goes up, you've got a $1.7 million asset. So there's very calculated methods to their madness when they're doing those calculations. But this just shows you, if those rates were different, how much that could affect your actual liability. And then on page 30, I mentioned we were looking at the statement of net position, the deferred outflows and deferred inflows of resources, and what makes those up. There's some differences between what they expect or their estimates that they make and what the actual experience is when it comes to the investments within inside the plan. they changed their assumptions slightly, and what does that do to those deferred outflows and inflows? So the big one was the net difference between the projected and actual earnings on the pension plan investments. That has a deferred inflow, or in the future, you'd be recognizing it as revenue or a reduction of expense of $786,000. And then the next page, on page 31, kind of shows the breakdown of when you expect to see those amortized over the next few years, the next 5 years, and how that would hit your financial statements if there was no changes between now and then. And then finally, footnote 8, just this was in there last year. I can't wait till we get rid of some of these stuff and stop talking about COVID just like everybody else, but there's still some uncertainties out there that have been an after effect of the COVID pandemic. Page 34, I mentioned the required supplementary information on the pension plans. This will eventually be a 10-year table. It came about, you needed to first start doing this in 2015 when you brought those pension assets or liabilities on the book. So we're only 8 years into it right now. Eventually it'll be a rolling 10-year table, but that just gives the reader a lot more information about the pension plans. You know, shows you're 107% funded right now down there near the bottom. Nothing else in there. And on page 36, you see, the different assumptions that are used by the actuaries when it comes to their calculations for those actuarial reports, and any changes that they may make year to year. Didn't plan on going through the other supplementary schedules in there, just more, more information. If there's any questions on that financial statement or anything I went through? No? Okay, the second item I want to go through quickly is the single audit report. And this is a requirement due to receiving over $750,000 of federal, or receiving and expending over $750,000 of federal funds. So with this, we go through and we do a determination of what is your major programs that would need to be tested. I think on page 10 is a really good summary of everything, instead of reading all the different reports that are required in this. So if you flip to page 10, you will see basically a summary of everything. So from the top part, looks at the financial statements. What kind of report did we issue? Unmodified opinion on that. Was there any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in internal controls or compliance there? No. Middle part of the page, the federal awards. So as we're looking at doing the single audit, were there any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies? Nothing there as well. Also an unmodified opinion on that. And then it lists out what the major programs are that were required to be tested. So you've got that formula grants for rural areas. On page 2, you will see the actual schedule of expenditures of federal awards that are listed. So you'll see 3.5 of your $4 million was related to those formula grants for rural areas. So no issues, no findings or material weaknesses, significant deficiencies when it comes to that. Otherwise, you would see that on the pages to follow here. So good, clean, single audit as well. Going through that, I kind of went through what the last document is, because this is just another requirement for us to communicate with those charged with governance as part of an audit. And it goes through once again and just talks about what we audited, what were our responsibilities. And one of the things that's new in this from last year is, because of a change in auditing standards, is the significant risks identified on page 2. So every set of financial statements or every audit has significant risks. And the two major ones that are pretty much in every single audit is management overriding internal controls and revenue recognition. You know, how and the timing of the recognition of that revenue. So that is not unusual to the authority, but it is a requirement that we communicate that at the beginning or prior to the audit, and then again at the end of the audit. So that's just something new that hasn't been in there in the past. On the next page, you'll just see significant difficulties encountered during the audit. We had no significant difficulties, no disagreements. Attached to the back of this is a management representation letter that management signed saying everything they gave us was complete and accurate to the best of their knowledge and ability. You would also see, or you do see at the bottom of page 4, upcoming changes in accounting standards. They don't give us a break. Every year there's something new coming down, changes in auditing or in accounting standards. So on the page A1 and H2, that lists out the new ones from the GASB over the next few years. We'll always work with management to make sure that these are implemented. If there is ever any questions throughout the year, they know how to get a hold of us. And then we check up periodically as well for those that we think would be applicable. I don't really know if there's any of these that are gonna have a significant, yeah, I don't think there's any of these that we really expect to have a significant, except for maybe GASB 96. This year, GASB 87 came about, and that related to leases of tangible items, like if you're leasing the buses or something like that. And in the past, they were considered an operating lease. All you would do is you would pay or expense it when you made your payments, you would expense it then. And nothing went on your balance sheet or on your statement of financial position. The standards now would say if you have a lease that's over 1 year and it's significant, and now there's a right of use asset or an asset that goes on, similar to a capital asset, and then a corresponding debt that goes on the books. So that was only for GASB 87, was just for those tangible items. Now, subscription-based information technologies, as we heard, Eric talking about some of these softwares and stuff like that that you're looking to implement. If you're purchasing them, it's one thing, but if you're actually leasing some of that stuff and some of that software, it may still make it onto the balance or onto the statement of that position. So that's really the only one that I can see right now that may have an effect depending on the terms of those agreements and how you go about doing that in the future. If there was any findings, significant deficiencies, material weaknesses, you would see those behind here in this report as well. I mentioned there was none of those. And then finally, there's that representation letter that management signed as well. Questions, comments? If you think of something in the, after this meeting or at any time, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself. Kelly and Phil work very closely with Lauren and Paul Matz. Paul is the engagement principal and Lauren is the manager on the engagement. So they've got their contact information as well. If there is any questions that come up, let them know. Or feel free to just call Raymond office and ask for me too, and we can make sure we get those answered for you. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you. A shout out to Phil and thank you, Phil, for jumping right in. Year end and the audit thereof was pretty much his first order of business and his new role at BATA. So that was a lot to tackle in the first 30 days, but you did it well. So thank you.
Thank you guys. Enjoy the rest of the meeting and get out of your hair. Take care.
Have a good job. Thank you.
Do I have a motion to accept the fiscal year 22 audit as presented?
So moved. Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is the Michigan Class Investment Resolution, which is basically just giving us the Michigan Class. So is everybody taking a look at that? And are there? Well, let's do a motion.
Well, I think, yeah, we need to hear from Phil on this.
Yeah, so Michigan Class is the, authorized by the state of Michigan to invest surplus funds of just government agencies, which, you know, we're able to. They fall under Public Act 20, and which limits the types of investments that they can invest in, same as us, which is, you know, basically certificates of deposits, T-bills, commercial paper, just very highly rated stuff that's very secure. And they have, I think, a couple $2 billion of assets under their control. So they're turning these around on a daily basis. So what would happen is any excess funds that we would have, we can send a wire or an ACH to them, and they'll, you know, put the money into their pool, and we'll get daily returns based on the average of the pool, which is currently about 4.7%. Right now, at an independent bank, we have a sweep account that's currently getting about 2.7%. Just the interest rates have risen substantially in the last 6 months here. We do have $8 million in T-bills. One of them just matured, and we have 2 more that'll be maturing relatively soon. The rates on those is 1.5%, 3.1%, and 2.83%. So we'll be able to move those funds into Michigan Class, track them all as sub-accounts. We currently have operating reserve funds. We have capital reserve funds. We'll be able to just set up sub-accounts, track those funds, generate all the interest earned on those will be directly deposited into those accounts. And anytime we need to transfer funds, it's a pretty easy process to move them back to our main bank account. Like I said, we're not, it's liquid. We can pull it out on, you know, with a wire and a moment's notice if we need to. And the last 2 organizations I was with also invested with Michigan Class. I know Grand Traverse County has some accounts. Hetty Sheppy uses that. The Road Commission also used them for their excess funds. It's a pretty good program.
And several other transit systems.
Yeah, I'm not aware of the transit systems, but I know that, you know, there's quite a few road connections.
So do I have a motion to approve Michigan Class Investment Resolution as presented?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have support?
Support.
Any further discussion? Let's see, we'll do a roll call and then. Good.
Richard Kaufman,
Yes.
John Somavilla,
Yes.
Robert Fudge,
Yes.
Heather Harris Brady,
Yes.
Brad Jewett,
Yes.
Jamie Kramer,
Yeah.
Joe Underwood.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, passes. Thank you. Investment in that policy. Has everybody had a chance to review that? Okay, so you're gonna see that one?
Yeah, I'm trying to get down to it. Yeah, so we had like a cash management policy here, and one of the requirements for Michigan Class is to have an investment policy. This is pretty much boilerplate type of language. State of Michigan had, you know, minimum requirements. I've, you know, had knowledge from road commissions on investment policies, and I looked at the counties and try to set ours up that kind of takes the best of all those pieces and put it just into an investment policy. It's not looking at procedures on how we handle the cash, it's just kind of setting the policy on, you know, the types of investments that we can put in, which coincides with what Michigan class. And if we ever decide that, you know, for interest rates wanted to fall out and we wanted to lock in some funds outside of Michigan class, this policy would allow us to do that.
So do I have a motion to approve the investment policy as presented?
Where are the funds coming from for the initial implementation and the annual support costs?
The T-bills are maturing, and that's what we're taking to do the initial investment. As those mature, we're taking those and turning them in and fill.
And then any excess cash we have in our checking account, you know, we can move over to Michigan class. And then as, you know, we have payables and payroll runs, you know, we can, you know, as long as we know a couple of days in advance, it's, you know, a very cheap. I prefer ACH, you just schedule it and you don't have to pay the $30 wire fees, and in 2 days you get the funds into your account available. So the plan would be to just kind of, it's kind of like a manual sweep type of process. Just moving them from our operating checking accounts back. The goal would probably be, you know, maybe once a month, maybe twice a month, moving funds. I wouldn't want to move funds every day. But just kind of keep an eye on checking account. And
have payroll every 2 weeks.
yeah. And we still have deposits that'll be coming in, you know, with property taxes. So we'll just kind of look at it, and we may.
Do we run payables every week, or do we do every 2 weeks or twice a month? Or
at least every other week, and if we have to generate something extra, we'll, you know, get it out sooner.
Is that lined up with payroll? So the cash need would be up, so we slip money back and forth.
I think we just did a run today, so it's kind of opposite weeks, but that doesn't mean we can't change it. A lot of places I've been, you had one person doing both, so yeah, you wanted to switch it up, but you know, we have John processing payroll independent of Brittany processing accounts payable, so we can kind of change those cycles a little bit.
Okay.
We try to look at due dates. We don't want, you know, late fees and things like that, so.
If anything, maybe pay it a week early, get it in line.
And usually the big stuff, for like our capital grants, we're getting reimbursed from MDOT first, and then we have 10 days to pay our vendors. For instance, GMV was the last one. So we're getting the cash kind of up front on those really big capital runs.
Okay. So our, probably should do a roll call on this also. Or?
I mean, it's up to you, but you don't have to. It's
well,
just a resolution.
That's fine.
We should.
Well, do I have a motion to approve the investment policy as presented?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
So since we're at the discussion part.
Discussion now, yes.
Finance oversight, are you gonna, do you have some milestones to check in on this and see how it's going? Like once a quarter or?
It'll be, Heather, it'll probably be part of our monthly meeting. We'll have Phil do a presentation so we can see where we're at, how we've been coming along and everything else.
These are very, most businesses have investment policy. We should have had one. Yes. Prior to this. That was kind of a gap.
We did, a lot of this.
But it's different though, because this says you can't invest in third world countries.
Right.
And this says you can't invest in gold or silver or whatever. It really defines what you can do. So when he steps out of line on an investment, it's gonna show up really quick. So we'll, every time that we go to move money around, we'll refer back prior to moving anything. We look at it, does it fit within the policy? So it's really a good comfort. And it's very, you know, very easy to work with. A lot of them, they're all pretty close in nature. We look at a lot of different investment. I know what they're. It just keeps things on the up and up, right?
And we present a quarterly balance sheet, and I'll modify the asset section, so you can see exactly what the balance is in Michigan class. And when I do bank reconciliations, they're all reviewed by Chris, so we kind of have internal controls in place to kind of, watch, the work that I do.
And they require you to have that because they don't want to find out down the road that not going with the investment policy, also that money side up with them and become litigation.
Right.
So that's why it's necessary. Makes sense.
So, Joe, we had the motion, we had it supported, on discussion now it'll be a matter of.
Investment policy, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I apologize, my questions actually, my agenda skipped down to the next thing there.
Oh, payroll, process.
Yeah, I couldn't figure out where we were going with it. I'm like, this is that. Because we were already done with that.
No, when I flipped up, item E came up and I just started looking at that, so.
Okay. You probably didn't restate your question. No, I thought you were going backwards. I'm like,
The day is ticking away.
So all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Chris, we probably have you to this one.
Yes, just to follow up, Richard gave a brief intro from the thought team when we met. So we currently have a human resource information system called Ascentus, and we've had it since August of 2011. And we were notified that UKG, which is the Ultimate Cronus Group, purchased Ascentus. And so they are currently managing Ascentus, and Ascentus will not be improved, changed unless there's some kind of legislative mandate that comes into place. So there will be no more changes that we can make to Ascentus. So we've been using Ascentus, and UKG Ready is the product that they're calling now their payroll system. And it's not just for payroll, but it's for payroll and employee scheduling. So we looked at some other systems because we do all our employee scheduling currently through When to Work. And so mostly our drivers, but our drivers and our dispatchers and mechanics, I guess, are through that. So anyway, so we brought together our operations folks, our technology folks, finance, facilities, and our operations people to just look at the product and see, it's a great product, and how we can incorporate scheduling. There are some other scheduling softwares out there, but they're not ready to be integrated yet, but down the road could be, but they have their own scheduling component that's part of this. So we'll continue to evaluate those other scheduling ones down the road, but it's Google cloud-based. They're going to continue to enhance the UKG Ready product. All of our employees can use it through their cell phone, their computer, their smartwatch. They have geofencing on it, so and geo sensing on it, so that a driver can't just check, punch in out at their home or something. We do have time clocks currently, and we would continue to use time clocks, but they also can do it through their phone, through the source. There are some additional things that we're doing manually right now that we then can do it through this new software. We would like to purchase it now so we can take advantage of our 18% federal operating reimbursement. We are aware of other transits that are currently using it. We were able to talk to Cronus and negotiate to delay the starting of the increase from what we pay each month for Ascentus to go to UKG. We were able to delay that by 120 days. We did meet with the ride out of Ann Arbor, their transit, who moved from Paycor to UKG Ready, just to talk with them as far as how it went, how it's working. They're larger than us. There are 300 and some employees. We're 110, 130. And It was a great meeting, really great. They really took the time to talk with us about the product, the conversion, some of the errors. They were very open about some of the errors, and this occurred since we met with BATA this meeting, but we were able to have a really good briefing with the users there, their payroll person, and actually they had their payroll person died in the middle of this. They had some breach of data that occurred all outside of this, and they were still able to transition over very smoothly because it really is taking a Centus and just improving it as opposed to going to some of the smaller ones like the Paylocity, Paycor, those ones. And so we had a really good meeting with them, and we're able to talk through, what are some of the errors they made that we can avoid. And we tried to pull, is there some negatives? What can you tell us, that didn't go well or anything, or that they wouldn't recommend, but they were highly recommended of it, as were several of the other transits. I want to say there's about 6 or 7 other transits that currently use it. The nice part, it's not just a payroll system, it's a payroll system that integrates with scheduling. So not that we can't just use their scheduling component down the road forever, but they do have one now that our operations folks are very pleased with. It's a pretty manual process, what we do right now with the scheduling part of it. So this would be a significant improvement, definitely, to the system we have now. So the initial implementation is 22,200. And then we looked at, you can see on the second sheet, some of the incremental annual costs. They're pretty reasonable, actually, when you look at the costs of them. I know others in the past have been a lot more costly, but if you have any questions you'd like me to address
What are
them,
we paying annually for Census right now?
it's on the second sheet there.
No, this is the
No.
new one, UKG, right?
No, the Census annual is 33,000, the first column, 33,000 at the bottom, 295. Yeah. Yeah, 33,295. This system would be 39,720.
I just have a technical question you may not be able to answer.
Okay.
Are they using their own personal cell phones?
Are they? Yes.
Well, okay.
Yes.
And this doesn't track unless they pop onto the app, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, that's a good question.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thanks.
And that's by their choice. They don't have
They don't
to
have
use the
to.
cell
Do they
phone.
tablet or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or, well, you have a time clock. They can
The
just
time
come in and
clock,
use the
okay.
time clock. Some prefer to use it because it's
Does it
easier.
integrate with the tablets that we're putting on the buses or not?
It will.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
They'll be able to view their benefits and see their pay stubs. And,
Okay.
A lot more
All
powerful.
electronic.
That's more
I get
what
it.
they use than actually
Okay.
punching in.
Just making sure.
Yeah.
That's all. Thanks.
Have we looked at any other potential providers of these services?
We looked at the different pay for, and our Traverse Area Human Resource Association recently did a survey with all the other ones, and we really aren't interested in any that don't connect with scheduling. So we're not really looking for just a replacement for payroll, and so none of those could work for us. And Paycor and one more.
So once
Paychecks.
implemented, we'll do away with our old scheduling system.
Yes. Yeah. And I want to say that was about 600 and something.
Yes.
It was pretty minimal, but yeah.
But it'll be integrated into one software. I know the Ascendus, it's pretty, they get some archaic stuff on the payroll side and then some web-based stuff, and it's hard to pull information.
I didn't even touch on that too, but made me think of it, Phil. The reporting that comes out of Ascendus has a lot to be desired as well. So we're really excited about the possibility of some of the reports that can come out of this system. And if anything, UKG, they work Cronus, if you're familiar with Cronus, and they're absorbing others. So they're going to be around to support us.
And so, Phil, Brad's question that he asked before was about this line item, right?
Yeah.
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 So do you want to address where the funding for the purchase?
Well, I'm assuming it's almost a swap because we're funding it before. With the exception of there's upfront fees, but yeah, I mean, what?
Yeah, I mean, I think when they did the 23 budget, it wasn't specifically outlined due to the timing of the notice of Ascendus and everything else, but I mean, just investment income alone this year, we're way over our budget. And it'll be even higher. And there's a lot of other line items in the budget that, we're not gonna be near. With technology, I think we might have a little bit of a cushion, but this might put us over just on that one line item, but within the overall, services line, we should be okay. And we still have, projected, at full service, 1.2 million surplus because of the extra federal funding this year. That is currently ending September 30th. We haven't received word that they're gonna extend it yet, but. And this would put us in line for getting it up and running so we could have W-2s processed for 23 by the end of the year. Otherwise, we're gonna have to find another piece of software to take data out of the center somehow and try to come up with our own W-2s. And that would not be a fun process for the amount of information that we have to report on a W-2.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the HRIS/payroll software purchase as presented.
Second? Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is the board compensation policy. Basically, we're saying $40 per year. And you can waive that if you don't. Not consider $40 for each meeting that you've done. Any questions, concerns, comments? If not, do I have a motion to approve the board compensation policy as presented?
Sure, I have one question. Maybe somebody make a motion first, on to discuss.
Yeah.
Motion, you just need a motion, okay.
Yeah.
The Beta Board of Directors moves to approve the board compensation policy as presented.
Do I have a second or support?
Support.
I have support. Okay, discussion.
Yeah, just kind of curious how you came up with the $40 number.
We just called around to other transit boards and asked them what their compensation was and just an average.
Just turned out it was good enough to talk about the same word. Any discussion? Have a vote test. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Motion carried. We have the board recognition policy, basically for anybody that's been on board for 10 or more years, so we do some kind of.
We recognize them.
Recognize them.
And
Yes.
that's what they have asked.
I have a motion to approve that as presented. That's support. Discussion.
I'll be voting no on this because it creates an unequitable category with the fair division. So I will be voting no.
I mean, how did it come up with 10 years? Because I mean, anybody that serves should recognize it some fashion. You know, but I mean, I'm just wondering how it's about 10 years.
That's formal, but informal, the board can do whatever they want. That's the way I think, but.
Yeah, but how did the 10-year get established? How was that recommended?
I can adjust that from the governance committee. We were just, we didn't want to overburden staff with having to do it too often. We thought a couple terms, you've served a couple terms, that's quite a commitment. And that way we could recognize the commitment that they put in without overburdening staff by doing it all the time. We wanted to set a bar so everybody understood like what the rules were for the recognition and that it was a fairness issue.
I don't have a problem with recognizing board members that have been on the board. What I have a concern with is that we're now allowing for a lifetime pass, which is a taxpayer funded thing for somebody who sat on this board for 10 years. So therefore you're creating an equity issue of the taxpayer versus somebody who sat on the board. It's just not, I don't think it's good public policy.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
I oppose.
Motion passes. Do we have a motion for the revision of beta bylaws as presented?
I'd like to make a motion that we table this.
Support.
Discussion?
So I would like to just add some clarification to the discussion. I'm the only at-large member of the Beta Board at present. And the way that I received this position was, it was advertised in the ticker. And what it said in the advertisement was that the board was seeking someone with marketing experience to lend their expertise to the board. So I interviewed along with a lot of other members of the community, and I interviewed with Kelly and Deb Rushton at the time. I had some transit experience in addition to my marketing experience, and that's probably why I was chosen. I'm nearing the end of my second term. So because I'm the only at-large member, I thought I would just share my experience with the rest of the board. One of the other things I wanted to add for the benefit of the new members, we're all dealing with a lot of new right now. There's new members, they're getting used to new things. So I think it might be helpful to just back up a little bit and talk about the retreat we had last year. We had a board expert come in, she led us through the retreat, and she identified some of the things that she thought would make us a strong, resilient, and purposeful board. And so because of that meeting, we created the governance committee, and she gave us a list of things that she thought we needed to have. And the governance committee has been faithfully executing and trying to carry out that list of things. So that's why there's been more policy and additional information that's come to the board than perhaps has been historically the case. We're just trying to make the board as strong as possible based on the recommendations of the person who came in and led our retreat.
And she was one that recommended that we go with 9 more diversity. Because then, Brad, what it does is it takes it off the table where you have to make a choice between Linda and Joe. And
well, when you made the comment last month by doing this, we could definitely get Linda back on the board. That threw a red flag in me. One thing, I've checked with our administration, I've checked with our legal counsel at the county. We have no boards where boards appoint their own members. That is just cherry picking the board and everything. It is cherry picking.
I totally disagree with that. Because, the commissioners, let me have my, commissioners are making a choice, but they're not the ones that are actually in the trench doing the work. This board is in the trench doing the work. So we know what the needs are. The commissioners are sitting over there in that building, and they do not really have any idea what beta is, what beta needs, or where beta needs to go.
Well, and it also sounded like Rushing was part of the last time. I mean, you said she assisted in choosing you, right? And I'm just trying to get, I'm new. I'm just trying to get a full understanding of what's happening. So it sounds like the commissioners can be involved in the process, because we as a board and we as commissioners can also be involved in this process. So it's not like that it's being siloed, correct? We're not just saying, you know, go to town, tell me who you want. We're all involved in this process, and I
This
think that's
board would
important.
appoint the people. This
Right.
board, this full board would appoint the
And
people.
that ends up being cherry picking your own board.
Well,
That
this
is
is
not,
an
that is set
independent.
up for a thing of disaster. When appointments happen, it's still, whether it's Leon County or Grand Traverse County, their board approves those appointments. That option is not in here. We can go to a 9-person board, but then we need to give Grand Traverse County 6 and Leon County 3, or whatever the case should be. It should be the board deciding that, not this board deciding who sits on their board.
Well, the
There's
articles
no
of
board.
incorporation of this board dictate how this board's composition is created. And that's what it says in the articles of incorporation, and it's also, what was advised by Beta's attorney.
This is an end run around the counties. This is pure unadulterated, empire building. This is
An
an
empire of public transportation.
Yep, this is an administration who is unhappy with what a county board appointed to their board. And they're trying to create an end run around that, which is not in the public's best interest. If this board wants to go to 9, I would suggest that this board sits down with Leelanau and Grand Traverse County and says they would like to go to 9, and they negotiate out how that 9 is going to happen. This puts the authority of spending taxpayer dollars half in the hands of people who are accountable to no elected official. I'm appointed by the Grand Traverse County Board. I am responsible to them and to the taxpayers. They can actually unappoint me if they so desire. If you reappoint them here, you are setting up the situation for potential, unfortunately, fraud and misuse in the future. This, whether any public hearings on this, or is this something that we propose? You don't even have input from the public on going to a 9-person board.
We're not required to.
I didn't say you're required to. What it appears is you're trying to cloak and dagger expenditure of taxpayer dollars. It looks like you're hiding what you're doing. And you didn't get who we wanted on this board, so now I'm gonna add more so I can get the votes I want. That is the appearance that the general public is seeing right here. So all I'm asking is that we put this on hold until other people can talk about it, so that the public can see it.
This was presented 30 days ago.
It was presented 30 days ago to us.
And it's to get, sorry, go ahead.
The expansion of the board was long underway before, what you're implying here. It was
You
long-
meet at 1 o'clock in the afternoon in downtown Traverse City.
A year ago, Joe.
This is not, you're not even broadcast on GTTV. This is a total end around. This has the potential to create massive distrust, fraud, abuse of taxpayer dollars that are going to this. You're laughing now, but I will not put my name on
It's
this.
to put someone from the public on the board.
We can do that
And
for our
riders.
board.
You can do that through an elected board.
Who
This
rides
board
here?
will do it.
This board is a fiduciary board. It is not a writer board. It is a fiduciary board. We have a writer board
You're doing
that we
what you're
can do.
supposed to do, and we would select the correct person. That's what you're telling me.
No,
We are all doing what we're supposed to do.
you are end running the
Set
county.
the
board.
criteria for what we're looking for to the proper county boards. They can interview candidates based on that.
Yeah. You could ask the county boards to actually appoint a writer on their behalf.
Kelly, the meeting's being taped.
I see that, but it's already being recorded.
Yeah, so he doesn't need to be doing that, since it's all going to be recorded.
I would highly suggest that this board tables this for now, until some legal questions can be answered, until the public can be engaged on if that's what they want done.
around chicken and see if that passes. And
Okay,
then if that doesn't pass, then we'll bring a motion to approve the revision.
we have a motion board to, table this. More discussion. All in favor of.
Yeah, we'll call vote on the table.
What's that?
We'll call
Okay, we'll do a roll call.
Richard Cochran,
No.
John Somavilla,
No.
Robert Fudge,
No.
Heather Harris Brady,
No,
Brad Jewett,
Yes.
Jamie Kramer,
No.
Joe Underwood.
No, yes, excuse me, I do want to withhold.
5 noes and 2 yeses.
Okay, so now do we have a motion to approve BATA board bylaws as presented?
I will.
So that's bylaws that you're working on.
Is
This says incorporate, article, is it not the articles of incorporation?
We're on
No, we're
item
talking
H.
about bylaws, so we have-
I'm sorry, I get there backwards in my book, I apologize. Put them in here backwards.
So we have a
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
board.
Yeah, I got it. Sorry, I was so excited.
We have support. Support. Okay, why don't we do a roll call vote?
Well, why don't we talk about this? Again, I would highly encourage the county commission boards that appointed the people on here who they vote yes to rescind their vote onto this board. This is nothing but an end round so that the votes can be tallied in the way somebody on this facility, somebody in this organization wants them. This is an absolute travesty of the public trust, what we're doing here. We're gonna have, yeah, might as well be in Russia. You're gonna appoint your own people. You're gonna have the fox guarding the hen house. Highly unlikely.
Joe, what you're implying is insulting me, because you're saying I've lost all my integrity because I am now gonna.
Have you ever questioned any new member coming on this board as to, hey, why are you put on this board and not the person I wanted?
We haven't had a board change in years.
Yeah,
But
Not that, nothing. I mean, really.
we did.
So, but
We put Bob
anyway,
on, we put Deb left, Rick left.
right, well,
Yeah,
Rick.
There's been a
Rick-
lot of change
Rick
since I've been
got
here.
Kickoff, basically. I mean,
he
didn't-
chose to.
He chose to leave when they did reassignments after
Mhm,
the special recall up there.
mhm.
this is bad public policy. This is absolutely bad public policy.
It also seems like bad public policy when this board makes a request to the county commission that's appointing the board members to have a person reappointed, whether that person was the most recent example that you're referring to, or the one that preceded Bob, which seemed very ignored and discounted by the counties. And so it has left the organization to find a way to rebalance the composition of the board to ensure that there's a broader base of representation that is comprising the voices of this board. There is no intention to make an end run. It is simply to have some ability to ensure that there is a well-represented board governing BATA.
Yet in your comment, you just admitted to it.
Yeah. I mean, the truth comes out.
In your
there.
comment, you just
Just
admitted
because
to it.
our boards did not appoint who you guys recommended.
All right, so
It is-
worst
this
case
is its
scenario,
own
worst case
organization. This is
scenario,
not a
there's a
county department.
conclusion
You
going
don't say
on.
it's a county department.
Worst case scenario, there's something wrong with
Yeah.
it.
There's already law in Grand Traverse
You're
County.
trying to turn it into a county.
Yes.
I'm trying to make sure
turn it into
accountability
having
stays where it
one
belongs.
on here.
It is an independent authority.
It is, but there's no other authority out there that appoints their own board members.
This is only 3 seats out of 9.
It's 4.
The 6, no, 3.
She got
One is
appointed.
at large, one is already at large.
Appointed through
2
Lehigh
more
County.
would be, no,
It was advertised, but it was appointed. through Lehigh
Right.
County.
no.
No,
Heather is an at-large board member.
I was,
She was
I was,
selected
Appointed
by
by-
this board. this
Okay,
board,
and you're gonna add three more,
2 more.
two more.
2 more. So there would be 6 appointed board members and 3 at-large seats chosen by this board.
Which obviously can't sway the board.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
not a
yeah.
majority.
So
I can tell that this is an end run, and it eventually will be bad. I know it'll be bad. There's no reason to move forward with this.
Heather,
Yeah, I would like to just raise a couple other points as well. It would take a minute. In the past, we have had a lot of city input because we've had city representatives on the board. Rob was on for 19 years. Then we had Nicole for a term. And right now, we're sitting in Hall Street Transfer Station in the city, in the heart of the network. And we don't have a voice for the city. We don't have the direct connection to the city on this board. So the fact that we're missing that key bit of information is a loss. It doesn't make the board as strong and resilient as it could possibly be. And right now, we do happen to have a lot of transit experience on this board. We're lucky for that, but that might not always be the case. And having the mechanism to be able to add transit experience, if we were lacking in it, would also bring value to the board. So all we're trying to do is add more diverse input so that the board can make good, well-rounded decisions.
Yet nowhere do we bring in your writer committee. There's no writer committee report on this.
Well, we talked about it. The LAC already works with the board very closely. And if we decide we want an LAC member, well, an LAC member can't be on the board. That's
I didn't say
how
that.
it's
I
set
said a
up, but
report from them.
we do get reports from them quarterly.
Why isn't it
right?
monthly?
yes.
If it's so important, why is it not
Stop
monthly?
with the gotcha comments, because let's just have a real conversation. I feel like right now it doesn't need to be gotcha. If you want to.
I'm not being a gotcha.
Yeah, but-
I am trying to point out that you are going down a path of bad public
But
policy.
then that's just speaking. You need to
Okay.
listen. We need to listen in order to work together
I think
and
we've
find
had-
out what the solution is going to
I
be.
think
And
we've
we
had
need to
enough
work together.
discussion.
Yeah,
I think
I
everything's
agree.
been put on the table, it needs to be put on the table. So, Brittany, a roll call vote if you would, please.
Richard Cochran,
Yes.
John Somavilla,
Yes.
Robert Fudge,
Yes.
Heather Harris Brady,
Yes.
Jamie Kramer,
Yeah.
sorry, Brad Jewett,
No.
Jamie Kramer,
Yes.
Joe Underwood,
No.
5 yeses, 2 noes.
Motion passes. Okay, now we're to the articles of incorporation. Do I have a motion to approve the articles of incorporation as presented?
I'm gonna move that we table this.
Support.
Okay, let's do a roll call vote.
I would like to discuss that and understand the rationale for tabling.
I just don't know.
I believe that we're now changing our articles of incorporation, not our internal bylaws. And we have no public input on this. Pure and simple. We're actually changing our articles of incorporation with no public input.
Any further discussion? Brittany, roll call vote if you would, please.
Richard Cochran,
No.
John Somavilla,
No.
Robert Fudge,
No.
Heather Harris Brady,
No.
Brad Jewett,
Yes.
Jamie Kramer,
No.
Joe Underwood,
Yes.
2 yeses, 5 noes.
Okay, so now do I have a motion to approve the articles of incorporation as presented? So moved, do I have support?
Yes.
I have support. Roll call
No,
vote.
I have to-
Okay, discussion.
We don't say in here anywhere, at least I didn't find it, where if we do these appointments, there'll be one of them for 1 year, one for 2 years, one for 3 years, and there'll be one comes up every year.
Says 3 years.
They're 3-year terms.
Well, 3-year terms, but you don't want to appoint 3 people for 3-year terms at the same time.
Well, by nature of Heather's term, we can fulfill that in the way the governance committee implements that. The nature of Heather's existing term, we can build that.
It doesn't solve the problem. We need to say that there are 3-year terms, but the initial appointment, one's for 1 year, one's for 2 years, and one's for 3 years. Otherwise, they're all up at the same time. And that's not what we were trying to accomplish.
I think the governance committee can work within the articles of incorporation language to implement that.
So, once again, you're gonna approve this and then change it,
It's not changing that.
but you're gonna clarify it after you approve it?
You wouldn't put one-time fulfillment in an articles of incorporation. The implementation.
Yeah, we didn't put it in the bylaws?
The implementation is not in the.
Okay, is that gonna
articles of
come back to the
incorporation.
committee? Back to this
The
committee?
implementation? Yes, this full board will be appointing the board members.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Brittany, a roll call vote, if you would, please.
Richard Cochran,
Yes.
John Somavilla,
Yes.
Robert Fudge,
Yes.
Heather Harris Brady,
Yes.
Brad Jewett,
No.
Jamie Kramer,
Yes.
Joe Underwood,
No.
5 yeses, 2 noes.
Passes. Thank you. We see the board discussion items. So is there any other discussion on things?
One day, it's probably what the bus rollover, I forget, first, can you check it?
Sounds right.
The one from yesterday? Yeah, it was a single vehicle, so just us, I think the driver was driving too fast for conditions, lost control when he hit an icy patch and all over it, but he's fine.
I just wanted to make safe as driver, so fine.
Yeah, yeah, he's good, thank you for asking.
That's good.
Second public comment, anybody out there?
I am speaking again as a member of the local advisory committee. I am hopeful with the proposed changes that there can be better opportunity granted for people that ride the buses and are engaged in BATA through that perspective to serve on the board. Also speaking as a resident of Traverse City, I would like to see more representation from the city itself. I wouldn't necessarily say that you require a board member to be on the city, but it is good to look at geographic representation, including from the most frequently served part of Vegas network. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, director comments and announcements, it's open floor. I'm going to the Keys tomorrow, so.
Things look necessary.
I'm Rich. I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved. Okay, we're adjourned. Yes, thank you.
Braving the elements.
Oh.